Hi, my name is Morgan Lemke, and this is my identity text. So, my language history, I grew up in the suburbs, meaning that I grew up in an environment that really was only English and was mostly white, upper middle class people. And so then I think my schools reflected that, my education reflected that. My first Spanish class, my first time really even hearing Spanish was in sixth grade, and that was only for a semester. Um, and it wasn't even really considered a language course at that time. It was considered just an exploratory course, meaning that um, the school needed to put me in another section for the day just to fill credits, and that's the class they put me in. And so that was my first time ever being exposed to Spanish. Um, I think that that is part of my privilege as a white upper middle class, coming from an upper middle class family that speaks English, is that wasn't forced to kind of learn new languages or be a part of changing kind of ideals, anything like that. And I think the suburbs kind of played a part in that privilege. In high school, I took Spanish classes. Well, I took Spanish classes seventh, eighth, all throughout high school, and then throughout college to get my minor, and got a seal of biliteracy in high school. It was a huge thing to get a seal of biliteracy because um, they said that if you could speak Spanish, or at least tell people that you could speak Spanish, it was you could get into college. It wasn't even in my school. It wasn't something that was celebrated as a language, but more so just as a means to get into the school of your choosing. Um, I also am trying very hard to be bilingual. Based on just like the reading that I've done in these classes recently, I think that I'm close to that. I can leer y escribir muy bien in Spanish, pero I struggle with speaking, and that's just because no tengo confianza en mis habilidades. Because I kind of been taught that you speak English, Spanish is only for Spanish class, we're going to learn some vocab, and that is it. Just a timeline of my language abilities. K through 5, I was in a monolingual classroom. No interaction with Spanish whatsoever. I can't remember any time that there was like celebrated culture, celebrated language. I grew up in an area that had a lot of refugees, but none of them spoke Spanish. A lot of we had a lot of refugees from um, like the Philippines, places like that. And so, but their culture also was not celebrated in the classroom. Sixth grade was my first exposure to Spanish, like I said. I had un semestre de español, pero no hay diversidad en la clase. Um, there were only estudiantes that were white and from upper middle class families. There were absolutely no Hispanic students in my sixth grade Spanish class. In grades 7 through 14, so end of middle school into college, cada semestre, um, I took a clase de español y porque quiero ser bilingüe. Y entonces ahora, casi bilingüe, pienso que porque puedo leer y escribir y entender bien, pero no tengo confianza en mis habilidades de hablar, y esto es porque mi sociedad um, does not encourage the use of Spanish in my home or in my environment, other than in the classroom. So all my education classes now are in Spanish, and I think that is doing a very good job of helping me with my Spanish abilities. So just like my past experiences with Spanish, as you can see from this graphic, this one says that 10% of all public school students are English learners. And I just think about how my experience with not having any exposure to culture, any exposure to anything other than English and the white dominant culture in the suburbs, um, this is kind of my why, is that I want to be able to teach to support that 10%. In the environments that I'll be teaching in central Illinois, or possibly in the suburbs with more bilingual students, this 10% I'm sure will be greater. And I think that our education systems tend to not um, work hard, or not work hard, but tend to not build the system around that 10%, but instead around the 90% who don't need that extra support generally. Um, my goal is for my students to feel supported. I want their cultura, lengua, um, habilidades, todos, to be encouraged in the classroom, not just allowed or like like allowed there, but instead welcomed. Um, Also, I want my students who are not English language learners to also have more of exposure to that culture and to that language, and to be appreciative um, of environments and of situations that are different than their own. This little graphic right here is from Modern Family, but I think that it kind of shows also another reason why I want to be a teacher of bilingües inmigrantes. Y esto es porque, well, dice, do you know how frustrating it is to have to translate everything in my head before I say it? Um, my students are probably going to feel, as they're in an English dominant society, um, that they have to be speaking in English all the time, that their language is not encouraged, that they can't do a mix of Spanish and English, that there's no translanguaging at all. And I'm sure that a lot of them, if they aren't in dual language classrooms or classrooms that encourage um, different cultures with ELL students and actually support them, that it is probably frustrating to have to translate everything in your head before you say it. I'm not someone that has ever had to do that. I am solo en inglés. Sometimes I dream in Spanish, sometimes I'll think of words in Spanish, but never have I had to translate something in my head before I say it in the general education classroom. I have in Spanish class, but that is 45 minutes a day. Um, and so to kind of understand how frustrating that would be for my students, and my desire then is to kind of just give them an environment where they don't have to do that and instead can feel supported in their English learning, but also supported in their use of their dominant language and their use of their dominant language in math, even in reading and writing, and not just in Spanish class. So, my motto, kind of, in my journey to teaching because of my experiences with language, because I haven't had any real experience with students from other cultures or students with other languages or any idea of dual language classrooms or anything like that until I really got into high school and college. Um, my motto is to escucharé, aprenderé y modificaré. I want to listen to my students and their experiences and their background and understand where they're coming from. And aprenderé, I want to learn more, aprender más sobre las experiencias de mis estudiantes, sobre las culturas, las lenguas, y qué puedo hacer en mi clase a apoyar mis estudiantes. I think that a lot of times teachers are kind of stuck in their ways, and as someone, a white person from an upper middle class family from the suburbs with very little background knowledge of what it's like to live in a family that you speak a different language at home than you do in the classroom, and not to feel supported by that. I want to listen, I want to learn, and I want to adapt. Modificaré mis enseñanzas y mis pensamientos. I think that to be able to adapt to what your students need is the most critical part of education, and that is what I want to do as a future educator. So this is just kind of my motto going into it, knowing that I don't have that language background, knowing that I probably don't understand as much as a teacher who is Hispanic or a teacher who is Black. I don't know, just a teacher who maybe can relate more to their students and culture and identity and background. I want to be someone that is responsive, can listen well, and can adapt to what their students need.